And we should be live. And the minute I say that, it's starting to rain. Welcome, everyone. I'll give it a second until I can see that you are indeed in the chat. Hi, Laurie. So we've got about 10 minutes to start. If any of you were completely new to me, if you don't know what's happening, we are live. And I'm going to have to get the umbrella out. Bear with me. It was fine until now. The very minute I start the tour, it starts raining. Right. So we've got about 10 minutes to start. So if any of you were watching this on replay in the next few days, if you wanted to skip the hellos, you can skip the next 10 minutes. We've got about 10 minutes to get to know each other and to see who is here. I was hoping to dodge the rain. It was meant to rain in an hour, so I was hoping to have a decent beginning of the tour at least. It doesn't look like it's going to be the case. We'll have a wet one. Oh, happy birthday, Dawn. I'm glad you decided to celebrate with us. And welcome, Roberta. Nice to see you here. Let me show you guys a glimpse of the view to show you where I am. Oops. So I am in Northchurch. Northchurch. Hi, Marilyn, and welcome everyone else that just joined. We've got a few minutes to go, so if any of you are watching the replay in the next few days, feel free to skip the next 8 minutes to go straight into the tour if you wanted to skip the hellos. So it is 3:30 p.m. UK time. And welcome, Ash. So we've got a few minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. And ideally, waiting for the rain to stop. But I doubt it will stop. It's actually looking quite bad, the forecast. Right, let me show you my face again. Apologies, it's an early one today for anyone across the pond. I had to schedule it fairly early because I had no idea what time the graveyard would close. And it doesn't look like it's closing at all. I had a look at the gate. I don't think they've closed it for years. So I could have actually got away with scheduling a bit later. Although I think the forecast is worse for later, so we're probably better off doing it now. But I know some people from the UK might still be at work, and some of you in the US might still... What am I doing in Hertfordshire? I came all the way just for the tour, because there's an interesting story here. It's we're not too far from London. We are about 33 miles from central London. Although it's quite expensive. I had to pay £21 for a train that's only 35 minutes. I don't know how people that commute from here, because it's an expensive commute. So I hope you'll tip me to cover the cost of the train. You blowing off your water aerobic. Yeah, it's a bit windy here, but it's not too bad. Yeah, it was okay-ish earlier, but yeah, I knew it was gonna rain. The forecast had been telling rain at the very timing of the tour for at least a week now, so I expected it. Right, let me gracefully stand up and let's check how many minutes before we go. 6 minutes. 6 minutes to go. Let me show you something funny. Well, I find it funny, you might not. But as you can probably tell, we are in a graveyard, right? I'm here to show you a very interesting grave. But look what they've got. They've got a defibrillator. I mean, it's a bit too late. They're already dead. I mean, I'm guessing it's probably there's a school next door, so it's probably to help the living. But yeah, I guess if you have an accident and you have to run to get a defibrillator for your loved ones, it might be a bit depressing to go through a graveyard to get it. Look at this one, they've got a cat. I don't know where they are, but that's a cute headstone. Yeah, I've never seen a defibrillator in a graveyard before. You have some in the red telephone boxes sometimes. You've got some in all the train stations and tube stations and shopping centres. A few of them on the streets, but in the graveyards, that's the first time I see that. Although there's a school right behind me. That's why I waited a few minutes before to start the live, because people can get a bit funny when you film by a school. It was a school around 5 minutes ago. All the kids were coming out. So that's the school. Their main entrance is actually through the graveyard. You want a kitty on yours? Do they still have funerals there? Yeah, I'm guessing they do, yeah. I've seen a few graves that are modern, so they probably still do have quite a few funerals and services as well. So anything could happen at church. So yeah. Right, let me see what time it is. We've got 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes. Apologies, you have a big zoomed up on my face, but it's because I want to keep the camera safe away from the rain. Maybe it's a try, just in case you're not really gone. Well, at least if you wake up in your grave, you've got a defibrillator. Tidy graves, yeah, it's well, I'm guessing there's quite a few people buried here because the level of the ground is quite high down there. But it's still running. Let me show you the dates. Some of them are quite modern. (1992), 2004, 2016. So you see, yeah, there are still people getting buried here today. And the rain is getting worse. Well, as long as it's not too windy, because the worse it's when you've got the wind and the rain at the same time. Welcome Mitzi, and welcome everyone else that just joined. If I did not greet you in the chat, lovely to have you along as usual. And we've got a few minutes to go, about 3 minutes to go now. And we are in Northchurch, just outside of Berkhamsted. And welcome Kurt. Hi Richard, nice to see you here. I've not seen you in a while. So we've got 1 minute to go. No, I just got my phone very wet. Hold on, I'm just gonna try to... Oh well, just bad luck. All I want is one hour of dryness a week, and it has to rain right now. Anyway, check the time. Yeah, still 1 minute. So it is nearly 3:45 p.m. UK time. And as you can probably tell, it started to feel like autumn. It's not warm anymore and wet, very wet. Hi lethargy. And Ronnie is here. Welcome, Ronnie. And it is officially time to start. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Northchurch. For the ones that don't know me, I'm Natalie. And without further ado, let's go. let me flip this camera around. Oh, you came to visit Peter's grave, Kurt. Cool. Hi, Evel. Cool. So let me show you Peter's grave, and welcome, David. So this tiny little grave here is from 1785. It's gonna be quite hard to decipher the headstone, but it says Peter the Wild Boy. Very interesting boy. He's got a great story. I'll tell you his story as we go, but let me give him a little gift. I brought him an onion because he loved his onions. Apparently, he loved eating them like you'd eat an apple. And he would literally be biting on his onions. So I brought one for him. Hold on, it's a bit tricky with the umbrella. I don't want to put it right in front of his grave because if they start growing, it's going to hide the grave. So I'll put it down here. And I also have nuts for him. Well, actually, I picked them up because I believe they were acorns. Because he used to run into the woods to pick up some acorn. But actually, I think they might be hazelnuts or something. They don't really look like acorn. I picked them up from the tower this morning. Anyway, that's the type of stuff he would have picked up from the woods. And he also loved his gin. Yes, absolutely, Kurt. Let me put this here. So that's a little gift. People still give him flowers today, but I wanted to be a bit more original and give him something he loves. If I come back in a few years, you might have a lot of onions growing here. Anyway, before to tell you about the wild boy, I need to tell you about his times. So I need to tell you about the Hanoverians, really. Look how much higher the graveyard is from the door entrance on the church. I'm guessing that's because we've got quite a few bodies buried here. Yes, gin, nuts and onions. That's a good diet. I like all of them, so I probably would have got along quite well with Peter. His name was probably not Peter at first, but we don't know what his original name was. Anyway, before we go much further, I've got a property for you because, well, why not? So this is a beautiful pub, the Georgian Dragon, quite an old pub. And the little red brick building right next to it, well, there's a property for sales inside. Let me show you the photos. Hi, Cheryl, and welcome everyone that just joined. So this beautiful building here, with the green window sides, you might see it's for sales. Let me double check. I think it's 4 bedrooms, but let me check. Yeah, I think it's, I think it's 4 bedrooms. What did I do? Bear with me 1 sec. It's all very complicated with the umbrella. Oops. Yeah, so how much would you pay for that little building here? 4 bedrooms in Northchurch. So again, you can commute to London if you wanted to. You are about 35 minutes on a train from Euston. How much would you pay for that lovely building? So we're looking to buy. On around here, pretty much everything is a freehold. So when you buy, you really buy for good. How much would you say? Noisy road? Well, don't worry, Mike. I'm leaving the road right now. We'll go by the canal. I did consider walking by the road, but I thought it was going to be too much traffic. But yeah, if you were to buy here, you'd have the traffic noise all day. Bear in mind, it's peak hour, so you'd have a lot of noise now. But so, how much would you think? Yeah, nice fireplace. 950, says Mike. It's a bit less if I remember right. I'll wait for you guys to guess as well. Let me cross over. Oops. Laurie, you're quite close as well. I think it's a little bit less, but you're not too far. Tish says 8.50. Ronnie says 8.25. You guys are quite good. It's a little bit less, if I remember correctly. 7.58 says Pisas. And Mitzi says 700. Mitzi, you're the closest one so far. Okay, let me show you the answer. Oops. Sorry, the photos are a bit oh, what did I do? $630. So it's not too bad. I mean, it's a bit too much for me, but it's not too bad. Right, let me get rid of those images. Bear with me one sec. Everything is a bit more complicated with the umbrella. Bear with me. There we go. And let's go and find the canal. So you've got a beautiful canal that goes all the way, well, you could go all the way down to London, or you could go all the way down to Birmingham, or even all the way up to Liverpool if you wanted to. Hi, Gaming Crypt. Nice to have you along. Oh, down you were really close as well. Cool. So yeah, let's go down the canal. So yeah, before to tell you about the wild boy, I don't know if I should be walking on this side. There's hardly any pavement here. I need to tell you about the Hanoverians. You know, even myself as a tour guide, you know, I don't really talk about them that much. In London, you know, you often end up talking about the Tudors or Queen Victoria or whatever it might be. But the Georgians, we don't speak about them when actually they're very, very interesting. Now, if you don't know much about the Georgian kings, you know, you might have heard that the royal family, they are originally from Germany. Well, it is true. They were basically German cousins, but sometimes we tend to speak about them like if they were almost hardly connected at all to the Stuarts, but they were actually not that far. Right, just so you know, we'll go under a few bridges today. Every time I go under a bridge, I'm gonna stop talking for about 30 seconds. Yeah, you go. So yeah, I'll stop talking every time I go under a bridge, just in case I lose the signal for a few seconds. This way you won't miss any of the stories. Yeah, so the Georgians, they were indeed from Hanover in Germany, but they were well, George I was actually the great grandson of James I and VI of Scotland. So sorry, you go. So to tell you how that happened, hold on, I'm just gonna push to the side again for the runners. You go. No, don't worry. Yeah. So James I, he had his son Henry, then he had Elizabeth, and then of course he had Charles, the future Charles I, you know, that famously got beheaded. His daughter Elizabeth, we spoke about her when did we speak about her? Oh, when we talked about, of course, the gunpowder plot. You might remember I told you that they had a plan to kidnap the little Elizabeth and to convert her back to Catholicism, if indeed they had managed to blow up Parliament and take the little Elizabeth. That was a crazy plan anyway. But after that, the little Elizabeth, she actually became even more of a stronger Protestant. She almost became like a Protestant heroine. And she married into a German family. Frederick V, he was the elector of Bohemia. You know, at the time you had all those little kind of kingdoms in Germany. You know, Prussia, Bohemia, Saxony, Hanover, and she became the Winter Queen because she didn't want to learn English, and they went in exile. Anyway, that little Elizabeth, she had a lot of kids. I think 13 in total. One of them was Sophia of Hanover, and Sophia ended up being, well, pretty much the heir to the throne, because in England we had Queen Anne. Queen Anne, you might remember, we spoke about Queen Anne in some of my tours. She was the queen that had 17 pregnancies and no babies that survived. Well, one of them went to the age of 10, but then he died. So sadly, we didn't have an heir to the throne. Queen Anne was the last one of the Stuarts, and she couldn't produce an heir. And you might remember, she's the one that might have been a lesbian as well. We believe that she probably had a couple of lesbian relationships. One of them was Sarah Churchill, the Duchess of Marlborough. Same family as Winston Churchill. And Lady Diana. Sorry, I picked the wrong time. I've got all the teenagers running. So Sophia became the heir to the British throne, because in the Stuarts, there were a lot of people that could have been the heir, but they were all Catholics. We did not want Catholics on the throne again. Some said that there were about 50 that could have taken the throne, but all of them were Catholics, and the closest Protestant relative was actually Sophia. Sophia was very well educated. She was very popular, so she would have been a great queen. She's actually the queen we never had. So she was gonna be the queen. Sadly, she died about 2 months before Queen Anne. So when Queen Anne died, the crown went to George I. He was the elector of Hanover. Because his dad, Ernest Augustus, was the elector. I say elector, at the time they were called electors, then they became the king of Hanover. Because I think at the time it was still part of the Holy Roman Empire and stuff. It's all very complicated, the history of Germany. But George I, he then became king of England, but he didn't spend much time in England. He loved to be in Hanover, and he's going to be one of the characters of our story with Peter the Wild Boy. He was, well, in a way, he was kind of a good king. He was, let's say, not extravagant in terms of money, because he had been chosen basically from Parliament, you know. So he only went with the Parliament money, whatever they gave him. So he was still a fighting monarch, you know. They'll still go to battles and stuff. And he didn't speak much of English, and he spent quite a bit of time in Hanover anyway. Marriage, you know, and Sophia very famously cheated on him. Sadly, at the time, cheating on the king, you couldn't do that, you know. And she cheated on him with a Swedish count. I didn't say any naughty term. I mean, a Swedish count, you know, the nobility title. I still don't know how to tell the difference between count and count. So I don't want to be demonetized from YouTube. But yeah, so they actually killed him. He was murdered, and Sophia was exiled. So the poor little George II, he didn't see his mother. She was exiled. He didn't see her after the age of, I think, 11. He never saw her again. So the little George II grew up with the idea that he wanted to marry for love. You know, he didn't want to have a terrible marriage like his parents. And his English was also quite bad. He was educated in French for some reason, so English was his fourth language. And one day, he decided to dress up as a French gentleman. I know how to spell it, but I don't know how to pronounce the difference. It sounds exactly the same to me. Count. Okay, I should say it the French way. Comte. This way, there's no confusion. Anyway, so George one day he went to some kind of a ball in Hansbach in Hanover. Is it in Hanover? Well, in Germany anyway. Germany today. And he dressed up as a French gentleman, Monsieur de Bauche, I think. And he wanted to see if he could meet ladies for love. Ladies that would be interested in him, not in him as the future elector of Hanover and King of England, but him for him. And there's a lady, Caroline, that spotted him straight away. She was like, no, I know exactly who you are. And actually, that was love. That was love at first sight. So that's actually quite romantic. Caroline, she's also going to be one of our main characters with the story of Peter the Wild Boy. She was a very interesting lady. Caroline of Hansbach, not to be confused with the Caroline that married George IV, different Caroline. But Caroline of Hansbach, she was very smart. She learned the English language. She was very popular. She was very much interested in science and Walpurgi, you know what? I read that it might have actually inspired James Barrie when he wrote Peter Pan. But there's also quite a few characters that are meant to have inspired James Barrie. You've got a little boy that really existed, as well as his little brother. I think his brother had died, and they saw him as a boy forever. I don't know whether I buy into that, but yes, some say that Peter might have inspired Peter Pan. And Caroline, very interesting lady in her own right. She was very much the one wearing the trousers, in the relationship. When the king was in Hanover, she'd be in charge. She really tried to learn about British culture and the political system in here. And she was really interested in science. She had lost her dad out of smallpox. She nearly lost her own life herself out of smallpox. And she was interested into, the beginning of vaccination. She actually inoculated her own kids. At the time, it seemed crazy to give a bit of the smallpox to your kids, but she did. And at the time, the kings and queens, they were often, the kings at least, not the queens, they were often expected to take a mistress. So George II actually took a mistress, Henrietta, but Caroline was very much involved. And some say that it probably wasn't sexual anyway. He just felt like he had to take one, And, they had many children. The Hanoverians, they are known for not getting along with their kids. George II hated his dad because it's because of his dad that he couldn't see his mum for so many years. And Frederick, the first son of Caroline and George II, he also hated his dad because they sent him back to Hanover to be the representative of the family in Hanover at the age of, I think, 7. And then he had, he had kind of like his own court. And it's not very different from what we have today, Some of the royals hating their dads and having their own court, or trying to be the king of Montecito, California, and having their fake royal events. Well, it was a bit the same at the time. You had the court of the king and you had the court of the Prince of Wales. Anyway, and George II, there's another story why his dad hated him. His English was really bad. And one day, his dad did something, And he said in public, he said in front of everyone, "I'll find you." And because he had such an accent, people thought, they were under the impression he said, "I'll fight you." So they thought he asked his dad as a duel. And that's why his dad was upset with him as well. Anyway, Caroline and George the Second, they were actually banned from St. James's. So they had their own place of court in Leicester House at Leicester Square. And they did love each other very much, those two. And sadly, Caroline passed away at the age of 54. She had a very, bye Susan, she had a very violent death. She long and very painful, probably. It turned up that one day she was at the library at St. James's, and suddenly she had a very, very strong stomach ache. And, well, they had to call the doctor and stuff. It turned up that for the past 13 years, she had refused to tell the doctor. So I'm just going to let them go. She had refused to tell the doctors that with her last pregnancy, she had an umbilical rupture and an hernia. So she basically had her guts kind of coming out. Hi Diane, welcome. She didn't tell the doctor because she was smart enough. I mean, she knew that medicine at the time was really bad, because they literally killed her. What happened is that she eventually she had to tell them. So she's got this bit of guts, this bit of intestine coming out. What you'd do today is you'd push it back and you'll sew it back, What they did at the time was not exactly that. They basically did bloodletting and all that. And they they decided to have surgery. I'm gonna stop talking for now. Look at the little chair. There's no way to get there unless you go from the car park. But interesting place to sit. Just gonna wait until we are out so you can make sure you hear me properly. Perfect. Did we have a signal cut at all? I never know with the canal bridges, sometimes we do. So anyway, they decided she had to go she had to have a surgery. I mean, you wouldn't want to have a surgery in the 18th century. There was no painkillers whatsoever. You'd have a glass of gin, that's it. Oh, by the way, Caroline, she was also the one that she was fighting against the gin craze. She was very well aware of the damage it did to thank you, Tish, the damage it did to the population. And we might have spoken about the gin tax in some of my tours before. Well, she's the one that had the idea. Of course, it didn't go down very well. People were on the street shouting, "No gin, no king." But yeah, she originated that. Anyway, so before the surgery, you'd have a shot of gin and that was it. And onions. And she was in horrible pain. And instead of just pushing the guts back in and sewing the belly back in, they actually cut it off. That's exactly what you shouldn't do. The operation was horrible. Apparently, through the operation, bear in mind, she's in pain. One of the surgeons, his wig caught fire. So she had to tell him to stop because she wanted to laugh. You can imagine the scene. And bless her, after that, she never recovered. She basically, I know it's a bit disgusting, but she basically had poo coming out of her belly. So, she was smart enough. She knew that surgery was not there yet because they basically killed her, unintentionally, of course. And as she was dying, she refused to see Frederick, her son. He had been estranged from his parents. Frederick never became king. He died before George II died. So his son eventually took the throne, George III. And George II, with his wife on her deathbed, she did tell him, you should remarry, when I'm gone, you should remarry. He said, no, I won't remarry. I'll take mistresses. That's it. At the time, there was such a sign of great love, of course. But yes, so big love story, those two. And so that was to introduce those two characters. So the ones that will be important in our story, it's George the first, and Caroline of Hansbach. So the wild boy was a boy, we think, about 12 years old. We don't know when he was born, but in a forest in Hanover, they found the boy. He's somewhere between 10 and 14 years old, probably 12. He was walking on all four, naked, in the forest. He had some kind of a little bit of a neck collar. That's a nice name for a boat, Siri. Hey, Siri. And so he probably had been with humans before, because he had the leftover of a short collar or something around his neck. He was not able to speak. He was very sunburned and very tanned for the time, and long hair. And as you can imagine, at the time they imagined he was a feral boy. They imagined he had been raised by wolf, or bears. They had no wolf and no bears in that area, but they put him in a house of correction because they didn't know what to do with him. And that's when George the First heard of that boy, and he decided to take him. He decided to take him to court, first at Hanover, and then back to England with him. So that's 1725. And didn't Truffaut make a film about it? Tish, I don't know. I've not heard of a film. I was actually wondering why we don't have a film. It's such a great story. Or there might be an old film. I'm not very cultured in terms of old movies. So there might be an old film, but I don't think there's any modern ones. And anyway, so he's taken with the king, he's taken to court, which is quite amazing because, of course, at court you've got all the court etiquette, Not only you have to behave as a human, but a very special type of human. You have to bow and wear those horrible wigs and all that. Anyway, let's have a little pause in our story because, someone's lost their elephant. Oh, hope they come back for it. There was a film about there are quite a few stories about wild boys in general, so I don't know whether it's the same. It would be an older one. Yeah, I've not seen the film. Maybe we'll have to double check. But I didn't read anything about it, so I don't think it's the same. Anyway, I've got two properties for you here. One is to buy. Don't cheat, don't go on Oakley's website. So the first one here is to buy, and the one next door is to rent. So I'll make you guess both. So this one is gonna be to buy, and this one here, right next door, it's gonna be to rent. Right, let me show you the picture of the first one. So the one to buy, it's a 3 bedrooms. Freehold, of course. Here you buy forever. How much would you pay for this lovely little 3 bedroom right by the canal, so you can come and have your coffee, sat down by the canal in the morning? So how much do you think that would cost? It's not too different from the one we've seen earlier, to be honest, but how much would you say? So to buy, we're doing the one to buy first. Down says 895,000. It's a little bit less. 800,000. 445 says Mike. 550 says Ronnie. A bit more Ronnie and Mike. Tisha also says 550. It's a little bit more. 300,000 says Julie. Mitzi, I think you're the closest one so far. Ash, you're not too far either. Pisas, you're not too far either. But Mitzi, I think Mitzi, you might actually be spot on. Let me double check. Down, you're not too bad either. Not too far, I mean. Yeah, see Mitzi, well done, spot on. Now let me show you the one next door. So it's also a 3-bedroom to rent. So let me show you the pictures of the inside. So how much do you think you'd pay for a monthly rent? So same, it's right by the canal, it's literally next door. So we're looking for a monthly rent. By the way, there's a river. So this is the canal. There's a river here. This is the river Bulbourne, I think it's called. So monthly rent for the one next door. How much would you pay monthly for the same 3 bedrooms? And again, you know, you can commute to London fairly easily. Just expensive commute. I don't know if they've got any monthly discount and stuff, but I paid £21 off peak. So if you have to commute early morning to get to work, it's probably quite expensive. 2,200 says Laurie. $2,000 says Ronnie. You'd love to have a house on the canal, yeah. Well, you could also live on a boat. I don't know how much is a winter mooring here. I did try to check. I downloaded the stuff from the Canal River Trust, but it's all complicated. It depends on the length of the boat and stuff, so I gave up. Sarah, you're the closest so far. You're quite spot on. It's a little tiny bit more. Pisa says 3,250. Ash says 3,050. Down, it's a bit more. Mike, I wish a bit more. Right, let me show you the answer. This way we can get back to our wild boy. 2,750. So that's it's a lot. Well, still cheaper than London, but it's a lot. I guess it's because of the lovely back garden by the canal. Anyway, let's get back to Peter. Bear with me, I've got my shoelaces. I'm just going to tuck it into my shoes, because otherwise I don't want to be falling down the canal. Bear with me 1 sec, it won't be long. I think it's done. Lovely. Right, so let's get back to Peter. So he's been taken on board by the king. He's now staying at St. James's Palace. And there's this fascination for the boy. Everyone wants to come and see the wild boy. It's a bit sad, but he's treated a bit like a pet, to be honest. It's probably better than if he was not with the king, because of course, you know, at the time you had all those horrible freak shows and stuff, so at least, you know, he didn't have to pay for his upkeeping. Although he might have been happy in his forest, you know. It's difficult to know, because obviously he doesn't have language. He does not speak a word of English. And it's not because, well, obviously, it's not because he speaks German, because he doesn't speak German at all. He doesn't speak at all. According to some reports, after a few years, he could say Peter, and he could say George. I'm not even sure that is true. And, apologies, I'm just going to flip my hat around, because the umbrella is putting my hat away. There we go. So yeah, he's still. He had a teacher, actually, Dr. Arbuthnot, that tried to teach him how to speak. Let me show you Dr. Arbuthnot. So this is Peter here. This is a close-up on the portrait. Let me show you the full painting. So this is from the staircases at Kensington Palace. So if any of you went to visit Kensington, you might have actually seen Peter the Wild Boy. It's basically a painting that the king had done with all the staff that would serve him at the palace. So you see Peter, you see he's got very specific forehead and lips as well. So even physically, he looked a little bit different from the rest of people at court. And this is the time where it's the time of the Enlightenment and people. We of course way before Charles Darwin, but people started to wonder what is the difference between animals and humans. If one has no speech, are they human? Do they have a soul? A lot of people started to write about, pamphlets and stuff like that about Peter. One of them is Jonathan Swift, the gentleman that wrote Gulliver's Travels. Well, we think it's him. He wrote, how is it called? The most wonderful wonder of the British wonders, or something like that. So that's all about Peter. Daniel Defoe also wrote about the boy. Everyone was interested in that boy because he was such an interesting, because for them he behaved like an animal. He walked on all four, he slept on the floor, he never really got used to sleeping on a bed. He'd be trying to kiss some ladies at court, like the wife of the prime minister and stuff like that. I mean, at court, that was, for them it was very amusing. He had a fascination for pocket watches as well. And he was doing a bit of mild pickpocketing as well, checking if there was any nuts in the ladies' pockets and stuff like that. He was an attraction. They loved him at court. George the First invited him for dinner a few times, but he was a bit shocked by his behavior because the boy would squat on the table and eat with his hands. And of course, he was not used to wear clothes. So every morning they had to kind of force him into items of clothing because, being naked at court wouldn't really go down very well. And eventually, of course, George the First died. So the boy was given to Caroline of Hansbach. And she kept the boy with her for the rest of her life. Again, he was at court, but he was well treated. They never fully gave up on teaching him English, or at least the alphabet, but he never picked up any language whatsoever. They said that after a while he looked like he could understand a bit, but he really couldn't speak at all. And sadly, when Caroline died with the horrible operation we mentioned earlier, the interest in the boy kind of died with her, and the boy was actually given to a farmer here in Berkhamsted. He was probably happier here. The farmer was taking good care of him. He was fed, and here, he could be in the countryside. He used to love staring at fire. He could stare at fire forever. Oh, that's interesting. Look at those little... I thought they were animals at first. Anyway, he loved staring at fire. He loved his onions and his gin. The gin made him kind of sing a bit. He didn't speak, but he could dance and kind of sing a bit. One day, though, he disappeared. He was gone. The farmer was so sad. He placed an ad in the paper saying, if you've seen a wild boy that is... he was a man by now. When Caroline died, I think he was about 25. So he put an ad in the in the newspaper, looking for a wild boy. They described him as, they said black, but I think they wanted, he was probably much more tan than anyone else at the time. And they said wild and doesn't understand English. He goes under the name of Peter. If you were to bring it back to so-and-so in Berkhamsted farm, you'd be covered your expenses and you'd be getting great gratuity. No one came for a few months. And over 3 months later, there's a rough, a very disheveled homeless guy that was captured in Norwich. So that's about 100 miles from here. And they put him in jail. And there was, yes, lethargy, we'll get to that. We'll get to the modern diagnosis. They put him in Bridewell prison in Norwich. And he was there for a few weeks when there was a fire. The fire was going to reach the prison. They didn't want all the prisoners to die, so they actually opened the gate. Everyone ran off, of course. Imagine that, the prisoners being released. Everyone but the wild boy. Peter stayed in there. So after the fire, when they came back to the prison, they didn't know what to do with him. They realized that something was very different about him. So they gave him to the workhouse. And that's when someone had seen the ad in the newspaper a few weeks earlier, and they were like, oh, hold on. So they contacted the farmer here, and they brought Peter back. So the guy was very well paid, and Peter was back. That's when they decided to give him a collar. I'll show you the collar in a moment. In Norwich, if you visit Norwich, there's a pub still today known as the Wild Man. That's after our Peter. Let me show you. I've got a photo of well, not a photo, but I've got an illustration of him a bit later in life. So that's what he would have looked like by then. And let me remove that. So yeah, he got back here to Berkhamsted, and that's when the farmer decided to give him a collar. Now, I know it sounds horrible, but that was with a good intention. So he'd have to wear this collar all the time, and the collar said, if found, this is Peter the wild boy, please bring him back to the farm. And you know, it was made with love. It sounds horrible to have a human with a collar, but you know, he didn't, you know, we don't think it was an escape. You know, he probably just wandered off. You know, he loved to go in the forest and pick up some acorn, or in the countryside in general. So there's a plaque for the wild man there. Apparently there's even a little wild man statue on bollards on the street in Norwich. I could have taken you to Norwich to tell you the story. It probably would have been cheaper on the train. Although there's a lot more to show you in Norwich. I might take you one day. Hi, Linda. I'm just gonna wait until we are past the bridge. Of course, we don't know how old they are back. They are back. Was saying that we don't know how old he was when he died. That's when the tour is almost over. So yeah, sadly the farmer died, and he died a few days later. If he really let himself die, or if he just died of almost like a broken heart, you know, we know it happens, you know. Apologies, I've lost you again. I'm gonna wait for a second before to say anything interesting. Right, we should be back again. Sorry, the signal, it's weird that the signal is going in front of the station. So this is the station I'll be taking to back towards London in a moment. Anyway, I'll just wait until the signal comes back to us. I'm not gonna say anything interesting until I see the signal is back. I'm just gonna run away from here, hoping to have a good signal elsewhere. Oh no, it's not coming back. Apologies, guys. I don't know why I'm just gonna wait until it's back before to say anything interesting. Hopefully it'll be back by the main road up there. Hopefully. Let me know in the chat when it's back. It's back. I'm not gonna say anything interesting now. I did not expect this here. Okay, we're back. Yoo-hoo! Thank you. Cool. So perfect timing, because we are done with our story anyway. So sadly, Peter passed away. He pretty much let himself die, and that's why he's buried here. Apparently, it is said that still today, people leave him some flowers every so often, or some weird French girls give him onions. Anyway, let's move on to another very interesting story. We've got a totem here. So that's quite cool. It is an actual totem from the First Nations in Vancouver Island. The picture is good, perfect, lovely. So glad we are back. Hopefully everyone will come back. Yes, Tish, it is said that he stopped eating, but that story might have been exaggerated. We don't know whether that's really 100% true. Anyway, let me tell you the story behind the totem, because it's actually quite interesting. There was a family here that was into the timber trade, so they would import timber from Canada. So it's not it's telling me we're back, but you know what? Let's go straight to the main road. I'll explain the totem again once we get there, whenever we have a spot of good signal. It might be because of the school. There might be a lot of kids on the way. It is here that the neck collar is kept. In the library, they still have the collar. It's a very old school for boys. Right, let me try to go through. Oh, and now it's working. Well, let me show you the... So that's from the 60s. So in the library, you can still go and see the collar from Peter. Right, I'm gonna try again to explain the totem. Hopefully this time it will work. So if the signal is good here, I might as well just stay here. I'm the conqueror down here. So back to the totem. You've got you had this. Oh no! I think the internet does not like this story. Right, we're back. I think the internet does not like this story. I think the gods of the internet do not want me to tell you about the totem. That's the only explanation I can see. So I'm gonna try to tell you a last time about the totem, and and if it doesn't work, we'll give up on that story. Let's go into the graveyard over here. Why not? So the totem. So what happened is that the boy, the youngest one from the family of timber traders, he went to Canada. He wanted to start a new life. He fell on hard time, and he had no food, and he was basically rescued from people from the First Nation there. So when his older brother went to rescue him, so they went to collect him in Vancouver Island, he wanted to say thank you to the First Nation people, and together they smoked a ceremonial pipe, and as they decided that the family, the Ashford family, they would commission a totem from the local artist Henry Hunt. Then they went back to the... I think we're back. Okay. I've got you back, so I'm not gonna move. I'm gonna stay here, and I'm gonna try to show you a little video. Berkhamsted Castle. Hopefully, I think we are back for now, but it might not last. So it dates back to William the Conqueror. When William came after the Battle of Hastings, you know, he couldn't very well protected, you know. So he actually conquered a lot of the south of England, and then he came back down to London from here. And he built those little castles on the about a day walk from London to protect the route from London to the Midlands. So this is actually a Norman castle. It's the land was gifted by William the Conqueror to his half brother Robert Cout of Mortain, or Robert Cout de Mortain, I guess, because they were all speaking French at the time. And so the land was gifted to his half brother, and eventually and Henry II took it back. The most famous people that the Black Prince, the son of Henry III. We don't know why he was called the Black Armor, or it could be because he was quite hated in France. So he lived there, and you also had Edward II and his lover or favorite, Piers Gaveston. So those are the most famous people that lived in Berkhamsted Castle. In the 16th century, it went into disrepair, so that's why it's in ruin today. But you can still go and visit it. It's free. English Heritage keeps it free, so that was filmed this morning. Cool. Well, at least I managed to show you the video. Let's remove the video and. Oops, let me take the video away. Hold on, bear with me. There we go. I'm gonna stay here. I'm not gonna move. Let me just show you the view from here. So there. And I think we're back. Right, guys. It's gonna be the end of the tour. Apologies for the signal issues. Well, at least we've had half of the tour. That was okay. Thank you very much for coming today. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat. You might hear the answer or you might not. Anyway, thank you for bearing with me with the signal issues. If any of you drop me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee or anywhere, that's very, very much appreciated. That's gonna go to also. It's thanks to you that I can still, you know, do some research for new tours and stuff like that. And if you want to see a bit more of me, next Tuesday we're going back to Chiswick. Oh, thanks ever so much. So yeah, next Tuesday we'll go back to the riverside in Chiswick, and hopefully we'll have a decent weather on a good signal. Finger crossed. I do apologize for all the signal issue, but we've made it to the end, so that's already a plus. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you next week. If any of you were completely new to me, if you've made it that far in the video, and if you've survived the signal issue, you might want to subscribe. It's always nice to have a few new subscribers. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on the fun next time, make sure you subscribe and hit the little notification bell, so you'll know when I'm live again. Cool. Thank you guys. Have a great evening or great morning, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye.